Hey everyone, Internet PCS book reader here. Today I want to talk about poison, the history of poison, powders, and murderous practitioners by Ben Hubbard. I think we all know what poison is. We can see it everywhere in any form of art or fiction. Song has as much title related to poison, including Britney Spears' classic Toxic. We see it everywhere in game as a form of debuff. In some games like Fear and Hunger, it is some of the strongest attack we got. In a long series, it's either a start of the story where a certain high school detective turns into a child, or a pivotal moment in the life of an incel in a Game of Thrones. Even in the foreword of this book that is by the author Sophie Hannah, she told us how she was inspired by Agatha Christie's work Five Little Pigs that used poison as the main weapon of the culprit in the book. There is a certain mistake in using poison as a weapon of choice. One, it doesn't feel as personal because the victim is the one that made the choice to ingest the poison. It is also easy to not see the result of your choice, adding to the impersonal nature of the murder. But also because once the poison is delivered, there's a window of time that they feel like they got away with it. It kinda have a similar vibe with stealth option in some games, which is fitting since a lot of games with stealth also had option to use poison. Now what this book is trying to do is list historical events when poison was used in such a major way that it left a trace in history. It will list the type of poison used, how it was used, and the effect it does both to the victim and to history. By the way, this is not an endorsement to use the poison mentioned in the book. If anything, it's the opposite. It's an educational information not just about the poison, but also that these are very known substances that can easily be detected by experts. It's not undetectable. This is not written by the Tang family from manhwa. It's non-fiction. Now onto the book. You will think that the book will first go to the earliest record of poisoning. But no, it went to 2018 when Russian poisoned Sergei Skripal and his daughter using the nerve agent Novichok, showing how dangerous poison still is despite our medical advancement. It was only after that we go to the very early record of poison, touching some aspect of ancient Sumerian, the Babylon where Gilgamesh came from, and ancient China. Both are very familiar to poisonous plants. But the most famous story back there came from Odysseus, where he used hellebore to kill Penelope's suitor and claim back his house. But these are mostly records from fiction like Epic of Gilgamesh and Odyssey. The first most famous recording from a non-fiction is on Socrates' trial where he was punished to drink hemlock. Mostly people know him from his philosophy, but he's also known in ancient Greek political field, because he's shown a lot of ignorance in the state senates that are mostly filled with sophists that only know how to debate well without actually contributing to the people. Socrates was so hated by them that they forced him into a trial to either drink poison or stop educating the people. Socrates chose to drink the poison which people think is a mixture of hemlock and opium because hemlock alone will cause intense pain and violent convulsion, not the peaceful death that Socrates said to have. We then go to Egypt to the last moment of Cleopatra's life. At that time, Octavian was on his last step of his ambition to rule Rome. After successfully consolidating power and painting Cleopatra in the most ungenerous light, he attacked Cleopatra and Mark Antony, her husband at that time. It is said that before Octavian arrived, she and Antony took their own life. Antony with a sword after hearing that Cleopatra has died, and Cleopatra with an axe, a type of Egypt cobra. We then move to the king of Pontus, Mithridates, because his father was assassinated through poison and his mother Constance planned to also assassinate him. He tried to microdose himself with poison to try to build up immunity to them. Don't do this, by the way. Some substances the body will never be able to build immunity, so once the dose increases enough, it will still be as deadly as possible. Also doing this is stupid anyway in a world where the most dangerous substance you consume too much is what you eat. After that there's Locusta, a figure that's almost forgotten in history, but she's a famous Rome poisoner who helped Agrippina to make her son Nero into an emperor by poisoning the current emperor. Nero will eventually also use Locusta to help poison his own brother and eventually his mother Agrippina. He's not a figure beloved by his people to say the least, even before Rome was burned. We of course also got Qin Shi Huang and his infamous mercury treatment for mortality, which only brings him and many others to their demise. We also have Empress Wu Zetian who brings China to a lot of its golden period. Unfortunately, the governing body at that time really disliked her since she's not a candidate for an emperor due to her not having a penis. And with that, we close the ancient period and move on to the medieval period. Thanks to Arab alchemists, we move into chemistry. And with that, the word of poison also moved from just the usual plants, animal, and natural elements since we can make one ourselves now. It is unfortunately got stuck for a while because of propaganda and become known as witchcraft for a while in the West until a Swiss physician named Paracelsus started educating people on the usage of chemistry in medical field. You can see an old wood carved news here on him performing an operation on his patient head. Also, you might laugh about since he found drinking mercury to gain immortality, but during this Renaissance era, a lot of medicine and even non-medicine used dangerous poisons, lead, arsenic, and mercury to name a few. Mercury are often used as filings for teeth, which of course cause poisoning. Even head during this era contained mercury, which cause mercury poisoning so specific we call it the Mad Hatter disease. But let's not forget that we're here to talk about a historical event, so let's move to the Borgias. These are some of the most corrupt time the papacy has ever been. During the time they were in Italy, there were so many scandals involving Rodrigo Borgia, the Pope at the time, and Cesare Borgia and Lucrezia Borgia, that there were multiple shows about them. Rodrigo Borgia was the Pope in this picture by the way. They were involved in cutthroat trade, orgies, and even incest. Yes, we heard that right, the Pope got into orgies. They also killed a lot of their competitors and enemies, which involved the use of poison. If you ever heard of any ways to administer poison using rings, the Borgias are the people that are rumored to popularize them. Then we have back-to-back still from the same area, Aqua Tofana, a poison named after the infamous poisoner Giulia Tofana. There's Catherine de Medici, the Queen of France, who caused a lot of death using poison from her throne. Then the era ends with the death of Elizabeth I that is rumored to be from poison. Before we finally move to the 18th century. We start immediately with the degenerate Marquis de Sade, who liked to give young girls his homemade aphrodisiac that often resulted in poisoning them. He also captured and tortured a lot of these young girls. He got away with most of this since he's a French noble and he lived until the age of 74. And since it's the 18th century, we of course had to talk about the Salem witch trial. The event is not done by the so-called witches of course. It started by Samuel Parris, a Harvard graduate scholar that owned a sugar plantation in Barbados. But after Barbados was struck with hurricane in 1680, he becomes financially insecure. So long story short, he decided to become a minister and was appointed to the city of Salem, a city that wasn't very receptive to outsiders. He's even the fourth minister to be appointed in the city after a series of failures. Here, he concocted a plan. He forced his two daughters to confess that their slave Tituba is a witch that caused their sickness, and then he tortured Tituba to confess that she and other women in the area are witches. Combined with a few selection of biblical verses and the help of other priests, he convinced everyone that there are witches in Salem, which turned into another witch hunt that killed many. Samuel himself lived on as a priest to the old age of 67. And with that we move on to the 19th century, the horror of Victorian era, where poison are so easy to get. There was even a famous case about a candy maker who accidentally put arsenic instead of his sugar replacement Dove because their container was next to each other and they were both the same color. The candy was sold out and killed many. The case resulted into the food regulation that becomes the norm today. There's also the Black Widow case where a woman named Marianne Cotton used also arsenic to kill her own children to her life insurance payout. There's also the Magic Factory case when Brian and May Magic Factory used white phosphorus as their ingredient. The substance is dangerous enough that Israel used them starting from 2008 as bomb to attack Gaza. The ingredient gives the factory workers what is called a fuzzy jaw. The domestic worker at the time went on a strike and received somewhat of compensation, although the factory still continues to use the substance until white phosphorus itself was banned in 1908. The factory used some desperate advertisement at the time, but eventually closed after they are unable to recover their image. Then there's the invention of chloroform, which can actually kill people easily despite how it is used in fiction. So we'll skip to the 20th century instead. Starting from here, poisonous events are often scaled up like everything else in the 20th century. Therefore, once poison is used, it often turns into mass murder. Israel use of white phosphorus bomb that I've mentioned, German use of a certain mustard during world wars, President Saddam Hussein use of sarin gas to eradicate a cursed city, Jim Jones cult that led to hundreds of deaths using cyanide, the Aum Shinrikyo cult attack in Japan that also used sarin gas, and a lot of other horrible things. This unfortunately continues to the 21st century and today with anthrax and a lot of Russian assassination using the element polonium that is formed by Marion Pericure. Besides these events, the book also listed varieties of poison like belladonna, lead, etc. and gives their effect, symptoms, treatments, and also some short mention of famous cases that use the substance mentioned. There are a lot of cases and details in the book that I haven't mentioned because there's not much changes I can do to them, and a few of them I think doesn't do a good enough job at making the psychopathic loser that use poison looks like a loser, which I think we should start doing to especially serial murderers. But other than that, I highly recommend you check out the book yourself if you're interested in the topic. I give this a 4. What do you think? Let me know if I missed anything, so leave your thoughts in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it.